Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is Pan. As the Asians said, marriage is a major event in life, and in traditional Chinese culture, the bride price is called Caili in Chinese. Is an this indispensable part of the marriage process. However, Caili have now become a hotly debated topic with exorbitant demands of hundreds of thousands of yuan, often sparking widespread discussion. Survey data on young people's wedding expenses reveals that an increased number of families viewed marriage as an economic burden. Incidents like the 380,000 yuan Caili in parts of Jiangxi have ignited fierce online debates about wedding customs. Behind this controversy lies deep-rooted cultural influences. In China, there was the concept of the three obediences for women. Sanchong in Chinese. At home, obey the father. After marriage, obey the husband. After the husband's death, obey the son. This meant women were perpetually in a subordinate position, with their primary duties at home being to care for children and serve the in laws. Moreover, Asian regulations stipulated that daughters could not be buried alongside their parents or clan. They had to be interred with their husband's family. If a woman died before marriage, she could only be sent to a temple to become a wandering spirit. Some regions even had temples dedicated to unmarried women, specifically for burying those who die unmarried. In essence, marrying a wife in ancient times meant adding another mouth to feed, while reducing the labor force of the bride's family. This is the origin of the bride price. The origins of Caili can be traced back to the Zhou dynasty during the Bronze Age. According to Xi Jing, Caili in weddings held symbolic meanings. A bundle of white sage grass, for instance, representing fidelity in marriage. In that era, wild geese were not only essential for livelihood, but also became symbols of marital loyalty. For this reason, the groom's family would present a live goose as a gift, signifying their cherishment of the future bride. Archaeological discoveries such as the jade goose unearthed from Lady Fu House tomb further substantiate this tradition. By the Han and Tang dynasties, the golden era of Chinese history, Chile had fully evolved into an economic phenomenon. During the Han Dynasty, Emperor Hui's Chile of 20,000 taels of gold actually triggered inflation. The myriad legendary yet true tales circulating in the marketplace found perfect expression in Bai Ji Yi's Qin Zhou Yin, famous poetry in ancient time, revealing the hidden economies behind marriage. Tang Dynasty marriage contracts were even more eye-opening. No longer mere simple lists of items, horses, land, and other assets were also considered important betrothal gifts, greatly promoting economic development. During the Song and Yuan dynasties, the culture of betrothal gifts was vividly portrayed through the pens of literati. And Su Xi, the prominent poet in Chinese Song dynasty, at his brother's wedding, whose Caili included not only gold, silver, but also an entire estate. Tea gifts became a cultural code of the era, as mentioned in Meng Xi Bi Tang tea, which bears seeds, symbolize the newlywed wife's commitment to remain faithful to one husband until death. The painting "清明上河图" captures multiple scenes of wedding festivities in the marketplace, vividly portraying the atmosphere of ceremonies at the time. By the Ming and Qing dynasties, the flourishing market economy led to increasingly diverse betrothal gifts, with silver becoming the primary unit of measurement. Market trend influenced wedding practices, infusing them with investment elements as antiques, calligraphy, were recorded in marriage ledgers. Huizhou documents exemplify this shift, yet also reveal stark class disparities. Commoners' Caili remained modest, often consisting of everyday household items. Societal transformation spanning three millennia Chinese Caili evolution mirrors societal transformation from early barter systems to the gradual shift toward the monetary economy. The social mobility between skilled officials and merchants hinted at cultural diversity. Throughout this process, a constant tension existed between the social norms driven by ritual and law and the desires of human nature. Even today, under the emerging practice of two-way marriage in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai, young people's views on marriage and romance are quietly changing. They seek to find a balance between tradition and innovation. In the remote rural areas of China, an age-old tradition has taken on a new, more burdensome form. The practice of Caili or bride price, once a symbol of respect and honor, has become a financial anchor, weighing heavily on the lives of young men and families in China's poorest regions. For many, it's a price too high to pay, and as this burden grows, it's having profound effects on the country's social fabric. The rising cost of Chile, compounded by urban-rural divides, shifting gender imbalances, and economic inequality, are contributing to an unprecedented decline in marriage rates, birth rates, and ultimately China's demographic stability. In rural communities across the nation, a growing number of men find themselves waiting in vain for brides who may never come. This reality is part of a much larger story, one that delves into the intersection of culture, economics, and policy in modern China. Origins of Caili stretch back thousands of years, rooted in a time when it was seen as a gesture of respect from the groom's family to the bride's. Initially, it was not about the money, but about showing appreciation for the woman's contributions to her family. However, in today's China, especially in rural areas, the practice has shifted dramatically. It's no longer a modest gift, but a financial transaction of considerable magnitude. By 2023, the national average bride price had reached a staggering 69,000 yuan, and roughly 9,500 US dollars. In the wealthy provinces like Zhejiang, the cost was even higher, averaging over 183,000 yuan or around 25,000 US dollars. Yet it's the poorer rural regions that are seeing the sharpest rise in costs. For instance, in Jiangxi, where poverty is more widespread, the price of bride can surpass 380,000 yuan, about 52,000 US dollars, not including additional demands like housing, vehicles, and gifts. Such figures are beyond the reach of many families in the countryside, leading them into cycles of debt. In regions like Nanchang, the capital city of Jiangxi, the Caili can range between 128,000 yuan and 188,000 yuan. For many families in rural counties, these figures are even higher. This growing financial strain has driven families to sell land, take on heavy loans, or even rely on bride price loans offered by local banks, which provide financial assistance with minimal requirements. However, this practice sparked public outcry, and the loans were quickly withdrawn, highlighting how deep the financial desperation runs. The situation is compounded by a significant demographic issue: China's gender imbalance. For decades, China's one-child policy and a cultural preference for sons have led to a skewed gender ratio. In some rural provinces like Jiangxi, the ratio of men to women has reached 120.8 men for every 100 women. In some areas of Anhui and Henan, the gap is even more pronounced, with men outnumbering women by as much as 20%. This imbalance has created what's known as the marriage squeeze. As competition for brides increases, the perceived value of women in marriage market has skyrocketed. The rise in Caili is a direct reflection of this phenomenon. Women, particularly those from rural backgrounds, are seen as valuable assets in the marriage market. And as demand for brides exceeds supply, the cost of securing one rises sharply. This competition has put even more pressure on families to ensure that their sons can meet the rising cost of marriage. For young men in rural areas, the escalating price of chili has become a significant barrier to marriage. And for many, the dream of marriage remains just that, a dream. As the financial burden of chili rises, urban rural disparities further exacerbate the problem. In urban areas, women enjoy access to better job opportunities, superior healthcare, and more substantial state benefits, particularly those with an urban hukou or household registration. Meanwhile, rural women, more often without financial independence, have become a commodity in a system that values marriage as a means of social and economic security. Many women from rural areas seek to marry up into urban households, creating a situation where rural men are often left at a severe disadvantage. The migration from countryside to city has intensified this divide, with 10.83 million people moving from rural to urban areas in 2024 alone. For many rural families, marrying their daughters into urban households has become a way to secure long term financial stability. For rural men, the pressure of meeting the demands of Chile becomes even more oppressive. Unable to compete with the wealthier urban households, they are left to navigate an increasingly unfair marriage market, where the price of a bride has escalated beyond their means. The impact of the rising Chile is clear. Marriage rates are in steep decline. In 2021, registration in 2021, marriage registrations dropped to their lowest point in history, with only 7.64 million marriages recorded, a sharp decrease from previous years. By 2023, rural areas have seen a staggering 50% drop in marriage rates over the last decade. This decline is compounded by a broader trend, a shrinking birth rate and an aging population. In 2024, 22% of China's population was over the age of 60, creating a looming demographic crisis. The rising cost of Chile, alongside these broader trends, has contributed to a future in which fewer young people are getting married, and fewer children are being born. The long term economic consequences of this shift are profound. A shrinking labor force, rising pension and healthcare costs, and an aging population that will increasingly depend on a shrinking base of younger workers. Chinese government has not remained passive in the face of this growing crisis. Over the years, various regions have attempted to regulate the practice of Chile, seeking to reduce the financial pressure on young couples. In provinces like Jiangsu and Gansu, local governments have tried to cap bride prices at 50,000 yuan. Some cities have even launched initiatives advocating for zero bride price, encouraging couples to marry without the burden of large chili. In Nanchang, for example, the city held a 100 couple mass wedding on International Women's Day in 2023, aiming to promote more affordable marriages. Similarly, in Henan, marriage reforms have been introduced, with the Pingshan Civil Affairs Bureau recommending a cap of 30,000 yuan for bride prices. However, despite these measures, enforcement has been inconsistent. Wealthier families often bypass regulations through informal arrangements such as gift exchanges, housing deals, or other assets that continue to drive up the cost of marriage. This reveals underlying cultural resistance to changing a practice that has deep roots in status, tradition, and gender expectations. The Caili crisis is not an isolated issue. It's a microcosm of broader demographic and socioeconomic trends that are reshaping China's future. From declining marriage rates to a shrinking workforce, a country's aging population and gender imbalances are compounded by the financial pressures of Chile. While government interventions are a step in the right direction, they have yet to address the deeper culture and economic roots of the issue. To solve this crisis, China must take a comprehensive approach that goes beyond short term solutions. Reforms need to be aimed not only at regulating Chile, but also at tackling gender inequality, strengthening rural economies, and addressing the broader demographic challenges at play. Only through systemic long term change can China hope to stabilize its marriage markets, reverse declining birth rates, and build a more sustainable future for its people. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any ideas and suggestions, please write to me at below comments. Thank you. See you in my next video.